Good evening, everybody. This is Joe Cruz, one half of the Commissioner Corners podcast. I am joined by my friend and my colleague, Samara Marsh. You can follow her on Coach Sam _DSU. And I'm also joined by Tina Cervasio, the lead sports anchor for Sports Extra on Fox 5 New York. We are brought to you on the Cruise Control Podcast Network. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And also, you can follow us live right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I am here with my friend Tina. Tina, welcome to the Commissioner Corner podcast. I miss you. How you been?
I'm good, Joe. Good to see you. Good to see Coach Sam. Thank you so much for having me on. Happy 2021. Yes. It'll get better. It can only go up from here.
I wanted to just get you on because, one, we've been at this a very long time. You and I, Randy and Sam. You've been around our league and you've been around every sports outlet in New York City and beyond. Just wanted to catch up with you, see what you're up to, what's been going on, and we'll get through the rest of the podcast together. So how you been doing? Let the world know what you got going on and how you been.
Good. Yeah, Joe. I mean, we go back to, and we were just talking about this kind of our little pre-show. Yes. I did one of your early podcasts back in, we think it was 2010. And I think it was maybe 2 summers after that when I came out to, do story on, hoops under the sun and hits. And then it rained the day of the championship. So we had to go from the beach indoors. So, but it was still a chance to, showcase you guys and that you still had your championship that day and that you had your season and all of that. So I will get out there under the sun maybe this summer, as we transition back to sports and events and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, and we also got to know each other well. And we used to see each other a ton, of course, at Madison Square Garden at the Knicks games. I was at MSG from 2008 to 2015. Did the Knicks games, also did soccer there as well for the Red Bulls. And now I'm at, Channel 5 in New York, Fox 5, New York, working. I actually anchor in the mornings. So it's going to be a late night for me tonight, staying up already. But I have like one eye on the Nets drama going on right now without Kyrie Irving and all that stuff. So keep an eye on that for tomorrow morning. And then on Sunday nights, I host Sports Extra, which is every Sunday night at 10:30. And, I've been really busy, even with the pandemic and even when there were no games, because I work for a news station, because I know so many of my colleagues that work on game broadcast, which is what I used to do. Right. Everything was just quiet, nothing for a while, just no work, no games. What are we going to do? But because I work for a news station, I was kind of uncovering all those stories that were going on when there weren't any games. When will Major League Baseball start? What will the rules be? What kind of financial hit are these leagues taking? What's the bubble? What is a bubble? Like, remember when the bubble, like we used to think it was like bubbles in the air or with a bubble. Well, now we see bubble, we think sports, we think quarantine sports. So right away, it's a whole new lexicon we have, and social distancing. So, I've been super busy. I mean, I worked home. I have my studio kind of set up to the side here. I'm just using my computer now. I have my TV camera here, but I worked home from March, I think it was like 23rd through June 16th. I would go in on Sundays though, because at Sundays at Channel 5, we have so few people. And we're, super spread out and like everything, you're wiping everything down with antiseptic and Lysol. So I did do my show every Sunday night at our Channel 5 studios on the Upper East Side, but working home Monday through Thursday. This is the same sort of kind of backdrop. I've had a little candle, a little ambiance, give us calm. And now I'm back home. They sent me back home right before the holidays, anticipating this surge. And just when you think like, oh, it should be getting better, there's a vaccine. I mean, I know a ton of people that went for tests today. They're sick. We really still have to be, so careful. And we're seeing it going on in the NBA now. I mean, that's why it's like Nets drama, but there's also the whole story about all these crazy new protocols they put into place to kind of create a bubble in your, it's like house to the arena, house to your practice facility, and that's it. So kind of keeping track of all of that. But I've been really lucky to be super busy. And then I also work at CBS Sports Network. I do college football for them. Wow. And I was lucky. I was so lucky. I've met a lot of challenges in my career, and there's been a lot of ups and downs. And I was disappointed when I left MSG, but I started working at CBS Sports Network freelance wise, and I got assigned to the Army football games at West Point, which is only 45, 50 miles from here. And it's like a different world, but you go up there and you're at the U.S. Military Academy. You drive into a town that looks like it's from the 1800s when it was built, still looks like that. And because it's a military academy, because these young men and women are training to be in soldiers and officers in the Army, they forged ahead and they had every football game. Only one game was canceled because it was BYU that had positive tests. Army, I did every home game. I got extra games against Air Force and Navy. And but it was also because I lived right here. So they didn't have to travel anybody in. I didn't have to get on a plane. I didn't have to worry about living with someone at home. Now, my husband is actually high risk. That's a whole separate story. He's a cancer survivor. But like I didn't have, young kids to worry about and different things like that. So I was in a situation this year where I was lucky to really work a lot. So I'm really grateful for that. Really blessed about that. But, sports has really been a great, and it's not a distraction because, when we're watching sports, we're seeing protocols, we're seeing that there's no fans. We know we're in a global pandemic. We're also reminded, while I think, obviously it's wonderful that so many of our athletes across all sports and across all races are making these stands for social justice. It's also a reminder of all the issues that we have in our country. And so, there was distraction, but it was also a different type of platform. And I think we learned a lot from the different sports bubbles, how to live and breathe and move on without spreading the virus. And it's also created incredible awareness for all, whether it's social justice, racial issues, just so many different platforms that these players have been able to use. So I think sports has taken on a new meaning. And then every so often you get a really good game and you can enjoy that.
So before I pass it to Sam, I know that you have expressed about your challenges in COVID and what we're living in this new norm. I know Sam can dive into that because she's a women's college basketball coach, and she's been dealing with cancellations and dealing with the new norm of basketball. So I'll let Sam take it, but I wanted to kind of have you both speak about, maybe Sam, speak about your challenges in terms of that world and in sports, and how do we connect that to Tina's conversation as well.
I can tell everyone it's like a surprise every day. Sometimes it's week to week, sometimes it's each day with the changes. So many of the conferences in Division I around the country have adopted the idea that if you end up with a positive case and your opponent is healthy, flip-flop opponents immediately. So you might have prepped to play one team, but by the time you get to the day before the game, you got to play. Might have to play someone else. Mm-hmm. Then it's getting your players up earlier than you might want to. So like some coaches, we have a philosophy, maybe game day, we don't do an early morning walkthrough. We let them sleep in. But then if it's an away game, you have to get up and test in that state. So we played Drexel over the weekend, and the state of Pennsylvania doesn't accept Delaware COVID Delaware COVID testing from our state. So we had to get to the game 4 hours earlier just to test in Pennsylvania for their doctors. So it's a lot of changes with results. I'm gonna tell you, the resiliency of young athletes is amazing. Like even with the NBA and WNBA going from the bubble to live games, and some colleges, some states allow fans, some don't. But the players are really getting it done. Like we tell them we're proud of them every single day because we know this isn't easy.
Right. So Tina, in your world, does that happen every day with you in terms of what you have planned and it actually gets scratched because of things that out of the norm pops up, or things that are now out of our control really taking over what we're doing? And what sport did you really love in terms of what you covered in terms of the word bubble? Which sport you felt did it the right way, and why you chose that particular sport?
Sam, listening to the stuff you're going through, I mean, that's what I report on every day. Okay, what games got canceled? Rutgers, Penn State, men's basketball was canceled here. This game was postponed. Who's adding new games? So that's what I'm like constantly keeping track of. And I just interviewed Steve Peichel the other day, the head coach of the Rutgers team. They've been lucky. I mean, they only had one game canceled, but that's what he said. He goes, he wakes up every morning to check his players' tests from the day before, but then they're going to be tested like 4 hours later, Right. So it's just this whole constant around the clock testing and staying apart. And then you get, like you said, you're so proud of your players. I mean, he's like, I'm so proud of my guys because so many teams are dealing with these outbreaks. And all it takes is even it doesn't even mean you're breaking protocol. It takes one mistake, one trip to the 7-Eleven, one trip, you just don't know where.
It's Wawa in Dover. You're right.
That's the thing. Like, and that's what, like, Joe Judge with the Giants, and we covered them, and that was not a bubble situation in the NFL this year. We saw all those issues, and they had like these little contact tracers. I did a whole story on the technology of the little chip that the NFL was using. But, the coaches tend to wear it on their lanyards. They're weird, or like by their whistle. Players tend to wear it because everybody's used to their, their Apple Watches, and then, who wears it like on their uniform. But, you have to wear it from the minute you get on the property. Right. And you have your assigned number. It was a fascinating story. And that's how the Giants, they had a couple of positives, and they had a couple guys miss games, but it wasn't brutal. It didn't really hurt them in the long run. So that was kind of fascinating to follow them. But man, just the NBA, I think the NBA knows now their bubble was phenomenal, but it also cost them billions of dollars, whether it was lost money because of ticket sales. Just to think the Lakers were in the finals and there was nobody at these games.
Right.
Not one ticket. Those tickets could have gone for like 10 grand each. The crazies that would have bought them.
Right.
So that's the thing. The money lost, but we saw from like a science perspective how well that worked. But we're also seeing no matter how hard, how hard you try, masks, the testing, the double test. You have to, anybody that walks into Barclays, and I'm sure the same is for the Garden, but I just did a report at Barclays on opening night. You're tested twice. So you test either, the players have their own separate testing system. So they're constantly tested. I always go, they're constantly tested up the nose. Then when you arrive, there's the rapid testing. But the people that work in the building and staff, my husband does stats at Barclays for the Nets. He just left tonight. He always does he gets these regular home kits. He's got like a ton of home kits. He does his home kit. He sends it in so that it's 24 hours. And then when he arrives, he does the rapid test, where then you stand and you wait in like this little holding area for like 15 minutes. So,
wow.
They're trying, but we're seeing a lot of games. I got another tweet before. Boston, could they play? Boston and Miami are struggling right now because they just don't have enough players.
Right.
It's not like they're sick and on ventilators, but, there are guys that are sick, whether it's, minor symptoms, cold. I'm always sniffling and always tired. But, it's the close contact thing. So, it's just, the bubbles work, but they are incredibly expensive. Doing a story, I just did a little one the other day. It's coming up. The Women's Hockey League, the National Women's Hockey League, NWHL. They're going to do a very shortened season. Usually their season's about 3 months. It's not as long as the NHL. They're doing about a 2-week season. It's going to be a tournament, and they're doing it up in Lake Placid. And, they're going up now. They're training now. They go up in quarantine for 2 weeks. I think it starts the 23rd of January. They're in the empty arena, but it gives them an opportunity to play a little bit, live streaming broadcasts. So everybody's trying. And Coach Sam is just, you're so proud of your players. And, and even like coaches in conferences, everyone's trying. We're trying, and some leagues, Ivy League was like, we're out. We're not putting our students through that. We feel bad for those athletes. But, that's the decision made. And then the ones that are just trying, sometimes – you'll have games, you won't have games. So that's kind of like, that's been my job every day, kind of keeping track of all that and experiencing all that, from the viewer side. I get to, and then present it to our viewers.
Right. And something, we're all in industries where we have to be very meticulous and ridiculous planners. Mm-hmm. How much of this has changed? Like how much, I've said to myself, I've had to go back to my roots where you just used to show up and just read the scene and read where you are. And so what has that done for you in terms of returning to your roots or figuring out how to do this when things change so rapidly?
Well, especially when there were no games. I had to fight. The challenge was finding a story every day. And I also wanted to be the one like, oh, thank goodness. Because March, April, May, all we heard about in the news section were the deaths, right? And all the awful things that were going on in New York City with the hospitals. And where Channel 5 is in New York on 67th and 3rd, between 2nd and 3rd, we are right by Hospital Row down there on 1st Avenue in New York. So, it just was constant sirens. It was unbelievable. And we were in the building and you could just hear the sirens. And I'd pull up to work. It was a desert land. It looked like I Am Legend, when Will Smith lived in New York City by himself. I would pull up, get parking right in front because,
you got parking right in front?
Gone.
You got parking right in front?
Parking right in front. I mean, who New York City anyway?
I am legend for real. I am legend for real. Go ahead.
I mean, it was crazy. And then all you saw on the roads were the ambulances. I mean, it was unreal. Or we were right by a city MD. So I'm walking to work and you would see just the line, and it'd be a beautiful day in the summer, in June. Yeah. And there was the line all the way up 2 avenues, all the way down 67th Street or up, and so it was just some surreal scenes to see. But Samara, going back to what you said, yeah, so going back to my roots, I wanted to find positive stories to kind of lift people's spirits a little bit. So, you find a story, Larry Moreno played at St. Francis College here in New York City. So he goes out, he's bored, he's looking for rims, and, he starts this whole crazy dunking thing. He's just got this incredible talent knack. So that was a fun story that even the most curmudgeoned news people either shot me a text or they responded when I saw me or leave me a note like, oh my God, Larry Legend, that was so great to see. Cause it showed how a kid adapted in this pandemic. It was sports. It went viral. It was kind of like everything that could go on in 2020. And there weren't even rims up in New York City. And he still found a way to do these incredible trick shots. And you find that one rim that was available, like under the Gowanus bridge, and he and his buddy would ride their bikes like 5 miles or whatever it was. So I would look for like little stories like that, in virtual training for youth sports. I mean, oh my God, all the young kids that were stuck in the house and their parents are like, I don't know how to kick a soccer ball, or I don't know how to, shoot a jump shot. So there were so many virtual training things, especially in youth sports, just kind of finding stories like that. And then there was it wasn't fun because I'd much rather be doing real stories with athletes, but I caught up with guys like Jeff McNeil on the Mets, Garrett Temple, bunch of the hockey players were very available. Talked to Mika Zibanejad, and he was in Sweden when the guys were in the bubble, and just kind of seeing them in their house. Yes. A couple times the Giants, I felt football was almost a bubble. Those guys legitimately got to their training facility at 5 a.m. and they were there till 8 p.m. I mean, that was almost a bubble. They were just sleeping in their beds wherever their houses were. So I always interviewed a Giants player at their facility. But it is just funny, seeing guys on their couch with their dog jumping in, or just and a lot of the draft picks. So that they added a human element that I thought was neat. It kind of took that controlled atmosphere of 100 people around a guy at his locker, showed him on his couch. And so that was kind of fun. Got to talk to Sabrina Ionescu a ton. And it just broke my heart when she got hurt because she was
my girl. Oh man.
So cool.
I remember that. I remember that game on TV. I said, man, this is like the white chocolate of female basketball. She's gonna play
oh God.
Well, listen, Tina, that team wasn't good. So she was doing everything, rebounding, passing, blocking.
Scoring, and that was brutal on her. It
was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah.
And then to see her get hurt, I think they did a good job holding her back for the year and say, you know what, this year's a wash.
Yeah,
we're gonna get you, get into the weight room, strength training, conditioning.
Yeah. And she was around the other pro players, and learning about their training regimens, little things like that. Yeah. But man, I tell you, I talked to her a couple times, and she's just such a cool chick, so mature beyond her years. Yes. I think a lot of that comes from her relationship with Kobe.
Right.
Yep.
I feel like I taught her a lot in a short period of time.
Yes.
To see that. And it's just amazing how I feel like that's the torch he passed.
Yes.
I mean, of course, LeBron can do all that stuff, but there's something special about that one, especially with Gianna's legacy. There would have been a Bryant. I mean, literally days before. I'll tell you exactly when it was. Today's what? January 12th.
Yes.
Exactly a year ago, January 22nd, 23rd. I was in Indianapolis I was at Indiana, University of Indiana, and we did for CBS Sports Network a We Need to Talk college campus version. So we all went to the college campus, and Lisa Leslie was we had the panel with Sarah Kustok, we know well in New York. Lisa Leslie was there, Summer Sanders. Yes. And we were prepping for the show, and we're sitting around drinking our coffee early in the morning, and we were talking about different topics. And I forget what topic we were honing this in on. It must have been women's empowerment and something like that. But Lisa was like, there's going to be a Bryant in the WNBA. She was so excited. Because days before was when Kobe and Gianna were at the Brooklyn Nets game. So Lisa was asking Sarah. So they're having this whole conversation, and it was 4 days before the crash. And I remember Lisa Leslie beaming about this girl is going to be in the WNBA. There's going to be a Bryant on a jersey. So I feel like that whole thing with Sabrina, there's some kind of torch passed. Like it was like, even though it was a short amount of time, I think it's very special and it'll be very poignant for years to come with her career, for sure.
So Tina, I want to take it. I know Sam knows about you, but the one thing I admire about you, you are so humble. I came across some stats about you. You know, you're a 7-time New York Emmy Award winner. I didn't know I was speaking for such prestige. So,
but MSG was a phenomenal regional network. You know what I mean? Like, I was part of a really good team. You know, I mean, the editors, the producers, everything about MSG. You know, it's the world's greatest arena, and that's how you're able to create, you know, New York's best broadcast. So that's a lot of the reason why.
Yeah, and then and along those times, you was in the era where the Knicks were kind of like rebuilding and setting their new tone. You did a great vignette on Carmelo on his, you know, with his father and him being his Puerto Rican descent. And then you did a great story on Amari and his, you know, surprise wedding and his vignette. So do you miss that? And what is the one thing that you miss about working with the New York Knicks and that time frame that you had it in those prime years when those players were?
I just love the relationships you were able to build. I mean, and that's something that's not going on right now in sports for any courtside sideline reporter, because you're not embedded with the team anymore. You're in the mezzanine and you're on Zooms. But what I miss and what I really appreciated, and I think there was nothing more, like I couldn't have taken more advantage of it. Like you said, like I was able to do those very personal stories about especially those two players. Was because, you know what, I'm getting on buses with them and going to shoot around at 6 a.m. in Dallas. You know what I mean? We're getting off airplanes at 3 o'clock in the morning, checking into the hotel, you know, at the same time. So, I mean, I was with these guys more than my own family for 7 seasons, because you're just, you know, it's a long schedule. You're on 2-week road trips sometimes. What I loved, and then what I loved seeing was away from the court, you know, away from the arena, away from the court, away from practice. I would see Amari a lot in the hotel gyms in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And think about it, he would go to shoot around or have practice that day, and then they would do their team lifting or they would have their game. But he was doing stuff before that because of all of his injuries. He was getting his body ready. He was doing the recovery, the preparation, and he would like carry around his foam roller, but it had like knobs on it, you know, for whatever stuff you had going on. I'm like, that can't feel good. He's like, it doesn't feel good. It's horrible. And then when he didn't see me in the gym in the morning, I would get like out the bus with Tina, what? Why weren't you at the gym? Were you out last night? I was like, no, today's my off day. So he'd hold me accountable. And I just also loved, and I think a lot of people do know this about Carmelo now, because he's got his own podcast, the What's in Your Glass.
Yes.
But I learned that about him.
Look, I'm learning, Tina. Look,
fancy, man.
You know what?
I'm learning, Tina.
Stupid hot chocolate right now. I should be drinking. Oh, I want a glass of wine now. So I learned that about Melo. I really started talking about wine. Oh gosh, I remember it was Oklahoma City, and I forget what year. I just remember because pretty desolate in that town. And I was actually coming back from a run, and it was an off day. And he was with his trainer / bodyguard guy. And they were drinking this nice bottle of wine. And I actually came in because it was like the bar area still had, and it was like 5 o'clock. So they were like before they were going to dinner, and I was grabbing like coffee. And I saw them around, and they were like, "Oh, you're drinking coffee." I'm like, I really could use that wine right now, but I still, so we were joking around, and then I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I ask? And do you know wine?" So Carmelo starts going on this whole thing about the kinds of wines that he likes, and the Camus or Cab, or God only knows what he was.
Cabernet,
but it was like some kind of name they were drinking, and it was like a $500 bottle of wine. And it was so cool. And then he would talk about, how he listens to Frank Sinatra and, just wants to drink a bold red, like different things about relaxing and all that stuff. And I just love learning that. Now I feel everybody knows, but this was like, oh my gosh, I can't even think, 2013, 12, like around then, the good years when they
going viral. Yeah, it is. you had to be in the know or in the circle for a lot of things. But before this era, before TikTok and I mean, Twitter was around, but it still wasn't. It's not as strong as it was with how many users and the type of information people are sharing. I think you make a point with that. Yes.
Yeah, like the Instagram lives and this, so you can actually take this podcast and put it on Twitter Live and, you know, all of that. So yeah, none of that was around yet. The Facebook, nothing really, it was just starting. So, and athletes, they were utilizing Twitter, but not to this extent, you know, it's where they were breaking news or creating news.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, so I miss the relationships you built from being embedded with the team. And also I miss just being, because, you know, every time everything's about focusing and being in the moment. You know, sometimes there's like, especially with the pandemic and the shift of the schedules. I mean, at one point we had like every professional team in New York was playing at once. I mean, you had the Liberty, the Knicks were out, unfortunately, but you had the Liberty and the Nets playing in their bubbles. Then you had hockey playing in their bubbles up in, you know, Toronto. Then you had MLS that was like in a tournament bubble, but then the Red Bulls and NYC came back and played locally. And then you had the baseball teams play. Like everybody was playing at once at one point. We're like, oh my God, we went from no games to everyone playing, and football practice was going on at the same time. So it was crazy. And what was I saying because of all the craziness? Oh, but that's what I also miss. Like when I was with the Knicks, it was Knicks basketball. And then who was their next opponent? It was like being an athlete. You know, you would prepare for the next opponent. Okay, they have the Celtics next. And then I would keep my Celtics notes for the other games throughout the rest of the year. Like, what are some follow-up stories I could do? Or if I would see, you know, it was just the NBA and it was all the focus on the Knicks or any other like local New York, tri-state area players that played across the league. I would keep track of them. And then anytime their team came in or we went to their city. So it was so great to be so focused on stories. So I kind of miss that. Now it's like, oh my God, it's all over the place. Now we got hockey starting tomorrow night. I can't keep track.
It really is crazy. And honestly, piggybacking off that point, I want to ask you about the magic that is New York sports. So like from young, I never really was completely dedicated to one team in either sport. And to be honest, right now, I'm really favoring the Brooklyn Nets. So for you, where do you think the magic is right now in New York City pro sports teams?
Like as far as the teams itself, I think the magic right now is going on with the Mets. I mean, they made that big trade to get Francisco Lindor and then Carlos Carrasco. I mean, he's a veteran, so he's a little bit older. So it's not like this young superstar hotshot pitcher. But you add him to the pitching staff that they have, and we're talking about like a healthy Noah Syndergaard, and then you add the person that he is. I mean, I didn't realize, like, because so much has gone on in news. I thought he was diagnosed with leukemia like a long time ago. It was only in 2019. Wow. So he's still like constantly getting his blood checked to see where his leukemia stands. And I mean, he's good right now. You know, it's in remission, etc. And he played this year in a pandemic, knowing he was the highest of risks. Wow. So, I mean, what a fascinating man, like to see him today. I never really, you know, you just see numbers and, the Indians are coming in to play the Yankees. It's Carrasco. He's great. But like you forget like all of that, or you just don't see it when you're stuck here in New York. So, I mean, I think the Mets and the new owner, and he's tweeting and he's fun and he's a gazillion billionaire. And it's just fun to think that those people, we think they're just TV characters. No, this guy really exists. I mean, he like profited $1.6 billion last year, Steve Cohen. Like that's what he made. Mm-hmm. and my husband and I were just talking about today, like we were saying, like Kyrie Irving's probably getting fined. Like he's probably getting fined. We might not know. And if he gets like whatever, the 1% of your salary, like he's getting fined $500,000 a game. Some people don't make that in their lifetime. And that's what Kyrie's getting, like, say, we don't know yet. I'm not reporting anything, but he could be getting fined that per game. And then he's like, that's not a lot of money to Steve Cohen, because he heard me on my Zoom press conference today talking about Steve Cohen that made $1.6 billion. So I think the Mets are kind of like the talk about team, because I feel like the Nets were, but Samara, like this whole Kyrie thing.
It's crazy.
And my heart still aches for Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, son of a gun.
Right,
and it happened in sports, but like to see that, and he didn't play in the bubble, but they obviously didn't last there too long. But I just feel so bad for him. So like I feel like that tide's turned, and it hasn't turned fully. It's gone in a different direction. I mean, the Giants were there. They were like the talk of the town for like a day. You know, like we really thought they were going to go to the postseason with 6 wins. And then that one down the tube.
Trying to wait for Philly to lose.
Right.
Wait for Philly to lose.
Yeah, so I feel like that. Let's see.
And
I love the buzz. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was really good buzz after that WNBA draft when Sabrina was picked. I mean, I loved the buzz and people were talking about it. And to see her on the back page like twice that week, I mean, that was so cool. So that's again, like I feel like a good turn that's happened in sports in general. And that's once they start playing and fans are back and they're at at Barclays Center. That's gonna be sweet. And like I said, Joe, building a better team around Sabrina. Yeah, let's see the Magic. I mean, hockey's starting right now. I mean, gosh, the Islanders made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Hockey. Everybody says, oh, it's a Yankees town, but this is a basketball city. This is a basketball town. We know when those Knicks were playing well, I mean, oh my gosh, it's the talk of the town. There's just like this different buzz about the city. That's we haven't felt since 2013. So that's always so fun. But and the Yankees, I mean, they were in the playoffs, but that was like a big disappointment. And right now, like it's so quiet. Like sign DJ LeMahieu or not. It's like we're just waiting around here, gang. Like
dribble. That's what we say in basketball. Dribble.
What's going on here? Yeah. So, but I think look forward to.
I'm gonna do my Tina Cervasio. So I have some news that broke, which is Jazz and Wizards game postponed tomorrow due to safety protocols and the NBA health safety protocols. So just like we mentioned earlier, Tina, like this is the world we're living in. Like you just mentioned, you had a couple of cancellations, and now we have a Jazz and Wizards cancellation. This is getting out of control, and a lot of the people who are really experiencing this have told us months ago that it will be the worst these months before we get any better. So just want to give you my fake Tina Cervasio drop. So I wanted to tell you that I have a question from a fan. Does Tina get any Knicks fans telling her or DMing her or messaging her that they miss her on MSG?
Every so often, yeah. And that's what I love about Knicks fans. And so any Knicks fan watching here or listening, I'll never forget my first year. It was the last game of the season. So it was the 2008-9 season. Yes. And that was the first year that it was like the Danilo Gallinari rookie year.
Ooh.
And it was the last home game, and the Knicks were trying to win their 22nd game. That place was packed, and they went crazy. And they won. And it was just so great. It was just the best atmosphere for a team. It's been weeks since we knew there was no playoff chance. And it was just the most amazing thing. And that's what I love about Knicks fans, even more because I worked in Boston and I cover the Red Sox. They get crazy. But Knicks fans are so devoted, like so knowledgeable, but like, I know the 3-point percentage is, 20%. And, the defense is giving up this many points. Like, like the stat, like it's a basketball city. But they're so dedicated to those Knicks, like kind of no matter what. Like, okay, we recognize what's going on here, and there's instability with the coaches, but they love their Knicks, and I just love that about Knicks fans: the dedication, butts in the seats, and it's not cheap to go to those games. I mean, there's no deals, no sales, no bargains to get in the Garden, and people get there or watch and jam themselves in those sports bars, and that's why I can't wait till this pandemic is over, because that's what I love so much about the Knicks, no matter what their record was, no matter what drama was going on, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that insanity to experience that with Knicks fans, it's almost like it's always one little, it bonds you forever. Like, that whole insanity thing. I forget what somebody was talking about once. I was like, it's just like insanity. Oh my gosh. And then like, you just start talking about it. And it was like this surreal 2 weeks of time.
Yeah. It was a phenomenon. It was a phenomenon. I remember the game that he I believe it was a net game. I was in at a function with a studio, and then I remember him playing, and I think there was some people out. Somebody was hurt.
Yeah, he came in and played like the rest of the game. It was because I remember Darren Williams was on the floor. And
then I see him sub in, and I'm seeing this kid. I'm like, this kid is getting a lot of buzz, and then I noticed that his first game or two, he had a little buzz, and I'm like, I'm looking around. I'm like, these people are really cheering for this dude that came out of Harvard. Like, This kid is like,
and he was in the league two weeks, like 5 games earlier. Like he was.
And then 2 weeks later, he's hitting game winners in Toronto. He's freaking like the starting point guard. And then
Kobe Bryant, that game. Oh my gosh, February 10th.
And then they said no, Carmelo and him have beef for signing a 5-year extension. What happened here? I thought we were all good.
And he brought him back. It wasn't until he met up that Miami team with LeBron and D Wade. That was when I think it kind of went down from there. But listen, I don't want to take anything from him because he did his thing. He did.
And I mean, you can, and then give credit to the leagues, the rest of the league rather, and the team. I mean, then you take 2 weeks and they figured him out because he was phenomenal. I mean, this is the talent he has. I mean, these are people that are playing against Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, and and coaches who played against Magic Johnson and in the past. So okay, well this is what he's got, this and this and this. So then that all came into play. So the reality kind of hits, but still, it was so great to see an unknown do that. So. And just the uniqueness of the Knicks and the winning streak and the Garden and the signs, especially like a Knicks fan, like not like, it's the Knicks and there's celebrity. I mean, you have like celebrities holding up signs at the game. Like it was like the Duke Cameron Crazies.
Yes.
But there was 19,000 of them at Madison Square Garden. And that's what
I tell you is I've seen the regular Knicks fans and no disrespect, I just seen a lot of his fans come to the Garden and support him and get this other demographic into New York because he was like Yao Ming for New York, right? In sense of like how
the cultural,
dominance from, other countries watching our sport and how he's embracing that role and especially playing for the most talked about, criticized team in any sport. You know what I'm saying? So
bright lights.
Take that and demonstrate it and do well and play well. That year was terrible, but that was probably one of the shining moments of that season, where it propelled him to get his career, but it gave a shot in the arm to New York fans to think.
And never forget, he was sleeping on Landry Field's couch. I remember that was like a big story. Like he was just hanging out.
I think that was Tina's story. I don't want to claim it, but it might have been Tina's story.
And that was like the whole sub story, like Landry Fields and Andy Routens. I mean, those two were like the two best buds. They were hysterical, those two. With the whole thing, that was just a really unique crew. That was fun. Oh my gosh. I miss that. I miss that kind of stuff. But like, you can't predict that. Like then you might have, you could have a really lame team, weird season. You have to bad seasons, good seasons. Sometimes there's too many superstars. So you can't predict that. So there were I had some really cool stories that I got to follow.
Good. Yes, Sam.
Are there ever any starstruck moments? Because I know you're probably floating in amongst all the different superstars and even celebrities, like non-entertain or non-athletic celebrities, I would say. So Roger Federer, Miley Cyrus, like because everybody comes to a Knicks or a Nets or Giants game, right?
Yeah. So I got a couple times where I was like, oh my God. I do have to admit and I just thought of him and I saw him in like 2 different situations in my head, maybe because we talked about him earlier, but I remember the first time I saw Kobe, like in person, and I'd seen him play in person, but like to be like, this close, because I'm a team reporter from the other team. So I'm right up to the Lakers reporters, like you're right there. So I remember that was like, oh, wow. Like, holy, wow, he is real. And he's right in front of me. You know what I mean? And like, I'm asking him a question. And then they gave me a one-on-one with him once. And it was like that because I'll never forget Andrew Bynum, local kid. So, he's from New Jersey. He has a double-double. The Lakers had like a 25-point lead on the Knicks at this point. This was in 2000. I forget if this was 10 or 12 and he gets a double technical. So he's like literally escorted off the court with like 12 seconds left in the game. So I'm like talking to Spencer Julian, my producer. I'm like, Spencer, Bynum. He's like, I know. He's like, just talk to John Black, see who can grab you. He's like, we'll take any Laker. They're all good. So I'm like, John, I was like, you're going to give me Bynum. And he goes like this. Oh, hold on. Kobe, what? You want to talk to Tina? Like just, and he's like, oh my God, don't mess up. I'm like, so I'll never forget that interview. I just asked him about the game, and he was great. And I remember him saying specifically because he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, like a towel." Or I was like, "Oh, okay." He was kind of like, "All right." I said, "What's your name again?" I said, "Tina." And throughout the interview, he was like, oh, yeah, well, Tina, we were struggling 2 weeks ago. And, this person added this and this person stepped up here and that person did this. And, and at the end of the interview, he said, well, thank you, Tina. Like he took my name in and he used it and it was a conversation and he paid attention to me. And that was an, oh my gosh, moment. Mm-hmm. Another moment was, and this is another one where my producer Spencer was in my ear like, oh my God, you're so nervous. Why? Wayne Gretzky. So Wayne Gretzky was at a game and, he's been retired for a while. I never covered him because I was never at this level when he was playing. And I was just really nervous to interview him. He's a legend.
Right.
He's the greatest. So that I was like, oh my God, I was like sweating. I was all nervous about that one. And it was so awkward too, because he was sitting down, I had like kneel on the court, to interview him. It was like, let me see. So a couple celebrities at the Garden. Why is his name escaping me right now? It's Jon Snow from from Game of Thrones. So I wanted to we was like in the midst of Game of Thrones and he's there and I wanted to like take a picture and I just never went up to him. Everybody's yelling at me. They're like, would you just go? And I'm like, I was like all bent out of shape and wigged out. And then I'm trying to think. So I don't know if he was Diddy at the time or Sean Combs. It's like a blur. But he was there and the two women that he sings with, and their names are escaping me. Oh my God, I could see them as clear as day. They sang the national anthem. I forget what song he sings with them. Oh, I'm Coming Home. This was the whole Carmelo. So this was after the I'm Coming Home thing. So then he was there and the women actually sang the national anthem. So he was just there at the game, like with them. And I walked by them and I think the Knicks were playing the Celtics because I feel like I was going down a hallway to see Doc Rivers at the time. He was with them at the time. And I remember, and they were both of the women were like, oh, we love your shoes. And they were like one of my crazy pairs of shoes. They were like leopard print and heels and all that. And I just thought it was like, they like my shoes. I was like, oh, thank you. And we were talking about shoes for like a minute. So it was just kind of funny, just so like weird. That's how the Garden always was. I mean, and then you've got like all these legendary basketball players walking around, you know what I mean? Just meeting, that job, I had a relationship with, got to meet Willis Reed and Bill Bradley and, all of Clyde's teammates that, that were around him. I mean, it's to sit with Clyde on an airplane. It was just, it's still incredible to look back and like, wait, I did that. So there'd be times where I'd be on the plane and I would ask Clyde questions and he'd be like showing me on a napkin or a piece of paper stuff about defense. and then I'm like, oh my God, Clyde Frazier is showing me defenses in the NBA right now. Like, how did I get to this place? So that was kind of like little things like that were always really cool.
So Tina, I'm always interested on your line of work. I know there's ups and downs, more ups than downs with you. Do you recall one of your toughest interviews? And if so, what was that? And if you can recall one of your best interviews to date, what was that?
So one of my toughest interviews goes back to before I was at MSG. I was at New England Sports Network in Boston covering the Red Sox. So I was the Red Sox, clubhouse reporter, like Steve Gelbs and Meredith Marakovitz here in New York. And Josh Beckett, he was a charmer. It was early in my time there. So I didn't have those relationships yet. But I mean, they knew who I was. I was on the plane with these dudes. I was a team reporter. I'm in the dugout. They know I'm the team reporter. You would think they'd be a little nicer to me. And he had a bad game. So instead of keeping my mouth, then I just never even bothered with him after bad games. I just let him talk. But, why did I ask him? I tried to, it was somebody, one of the hitters, I forget who it was. It was against the Orioles because I could see the clubhouse clear as day. And I asked him about this, hitter sitting on a fastball and obviously gave up a home run on that. And what do you know about throwing a fast 98 mile per hour fastball? And I was like, and like all the writers were like, and I was like, I don't, that's why I'm asking you. And like, it was like somebody shot me in the stomach, it was, cause it was proverbially, it was post game. So it was live through our post game show. So, give or take a few seconds for them to hit the button if there was a swear word. But I was like, could you hit the button for the next 6 minutes? So that was brutal. And it was like tough to come back from, because then my confidence just went down the drain. And baseball players are tough. And I have no problem saying that because a lot of the guys that retire, they know it. Like, oh gosh, I was tough like that, huh? And then there's gems. There's some great players that there's always some good eggs, but baseball players were tough because, you would get this streak, sometimes it'd be the same guy who had the game-winning hit like 2-3 nights in a row, or like the guy's on a streak. So he's like 3 for 4 one night, he's 2 for 3 with the game winner the next night. And you want to go for him like on the on-field interview after the game. And they're like, you just had me yesterday, and they like walk off. And then you're like, oh, and there's like nobody around to like grab. Like that was tough about baseball in my situation. You have like grab a player yourself, like running off the field, like, hey, can I get? And the pitchers are gone. You know what I mean? The winning pitcher's been showered for 4 hours. So especially AL East game, they're like 5 hours long. So that was really difficult, though. That was difficult for me to kind of learn and get through and get over it and have those backup plans when the player would be like, oh, you interviewed me 3 days ago. Why do you have to interview me again? Because you hit the game winning run. News to you. So that was tough. Amari was always a fun interview. I mean, I remember guys like Antoine Jameson post game, Steve Nash, post game interviews. I didn't know these guys well, but they were just such good interviews and they were so nice and answered my questions. But Amari was always fun. Like the best one was that sit down interview I did with him about his kids. Yeah. And, and they were so young then. My God, his daughter's a teenager now. Oh my God. And, stuff like that. And also, his traditional Jewish wedding that he had, and just, him discovering his faith and why he wanted to have this traditional wedding. And, so that was really fun and neat to have him open up to me like that. And Carmelo too, to him to talk about his dad and his background and race. And all of that. That was really, I was like, I was like, oh, should I go down this road? I didn't want to offend him or anything. And he was really comfortable and open about it. So those were 2 really good experiences. Those 2 like in-depth interviews with those 2 guys. I'm trying to think, like, since then, have I had like, now it's like coaches and, I've met so many fun, Bill Cartwright was a hoot. So I had him on Zoom this past, pandemic, right in the middle of The Last Dance. So through a friend, a guy, we're all watching The Last Dance. We're all tweeting about it. And a friend reached out to me. He's like, hey, I work with Bill Cartwright. Maybe I can get him to come on your show. I was like, oh my God, yeah. Could we get him? And sure enough, Bill came on and did an interview with me. And he was all honest about we couldn't stand Michael. And so that he was like a hoot. He was fun. And it was also fun talking about when he played with the Knicks, which was just a great connection to our show. That was a good interview. I talked to Garrett Temple about the LSATs. If we had like maybe a 25-minute interview, 20 minutes was about the LSATs and law and what he wants to study and what he wants to do. I kind of miss him now. He's with the Bulls, but he was a great interview. My gosh, this summer. And that was neat. He was in like a real chic, I don't know what kind of modern loft he had. That was another cool thing to see where he lived in Brooklyn. It was like that really typical Brooklyn industry city, modern, cool apartment, and he's talking about his LSATs and what he's studying and what kind of law and the true character from Mercy, right? Have Mercy. What's the movie with
Just Mercy.
Just Mercy. Yeah, Michael B. Jordan. So he reached out and spoke to that person, about his path to being a DA, I think it was, and just, really neat and interesting stuff. So I love when you could do an interview with a player or a coach for that matter, and just what else they do, what their other interests are. And then I think it just says so much. And I love that players today, I think it's their thing. Like they want to have another interest, whether it's art or fashion or wine or, be a connoisseur in something or religion or faith. And I love that about players these days, or Mr. Businessman, LeBron James. I mean, he, talk about taking that to a whole nother level.
Collectibles. I think Serge Ibaka met with Gary Vee and he's into sport card trading or collecting. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the first, I think, What's in Your Glasses that Carmelo did was with Gary Vee. I was like taking notes on that. I'm like, yeah, I can't. I'm Googling like I don't know these lines. I don't spend this in a week on food. But it was fun to learn. So that, little things like that. But then another great interview, and sometimes you can't predict the moment. Like when Carmelo scores 62 points, or when I was with the Red Sox and I covered a no-hitter.
Yes.
Clay Buchholz in 2007. He was a call-up rookie that day. He had pitched 2 or 3 times earlier. And I covered it. You know, I was able to do a no-hitter walk-off with this kid that was like, I don't even know what just happened. He's like, Jason Varitek told me what pitches to throw, and I just threw them, and the guys kept striking out. I mean, it's just like no answers. He's like, I don't know. I just kept listening to Jason. Like, that was what he kept saying to me. But, you know, it was just kind of neat to see that. It wasn't like this hot shot, you know, pitcher that was like, yeah, you know, no hitter. It was just like this kid that was like, I don't know what happened, you know. So that was, you know, those moments are always great in sports.
So Tina, I'm interested. Just to let you know, we're supported by Red Bull as an entity. I know you did a lot of coverage on the Red Bulls. Tell us a little more about the Red Bulls and what they're doing, and educate our audience who probably is a basketball audience. Talk about that experience with that with the Red Bulls.
So when the pandemic is over and we can go back to sporting events, if you have never been to Red Bull Arena, you really need to go there. It might, I mean, you know, Yankee Stadium's big and the Garden's the world's greatest, but this is just such a unique sports experience. It is a beautiful arena. I mean, it's 13 years old now. No, it's 10. What year are we in? 2020? Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. I guess it'll be 13. It'll be 12 or 13. But just a beautiful facility, and it is built so specific for soccer, and it's got the European your style where, you know, if it's raining, you're actually covered. You know, you're unless you're like the first 5 rows, but that's it. You're covered. You know, it's got the opening right over the field. It's just great, especially when it is full and you've got the supporters singing and chanting and the smoke and the tiafos. It is just such a great experience. And then I just love, and I can't wait till NYCFC gets their own soccer specific arena, because they deserve it. They're a great team. They've got great players. And they'll play a better product. You really do, because it's very odd playing in a baseball diamond. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I mean, I loved covering soccer. I mean, I'd always been surrounded by soccer, you know, tried to play it as a kid, wasn't that good. In high school, in college rather, I was the manager of the women's soccer team. And then, so I really got into European soccer when I was in college then, just from my friends being fans. So it just, you know, I was just exposed to like Barcelona, Madrid, Real Madrid, and FC Barcelona. And then, but being able to cover MLS, to cover Thierry Henry was just like, that's another thing you just don't expect. You know, you see one of the world's greatest players and you know his story from the World Cup in France, and then he comes to the Red Bulls where I'm covering the team every day. Oh my God. So that was a really neat experience. But what was cool about him is he loved New York so much because, let's be honest, you know, on the right, especially in New York, you know, other cities, their MLS team is like the team and they're superstars. Right. But in New York, he blended right in, because it wasn't like Derek Jeter walking around or Carmelo Anthony. I mean, a lot of these people didn't know who Thierry Henry was. So he just would ride his bike and go jogging through Soho where he lived, or, you know, on the East River or on the Hudson River. He just loved New York. He was really able to blend in. And then every so often you get your European that be like, oh my God, it's Titi, you know, and he'd be like, you're from Europe. Yeah, that's how you know I am. So it was really neat covering that aspect of his career. And now he's a coach in Montreal for MLS. But I love soccer players. I love the American soccer players. And then I loved covering the European soccer players. Just has a different vibe. Yeah. It really, really did. You know, whether it was a European player that maybe wasn't making it, at their, you know, Division I or their first level, and they come to MLS to play. I mean, they're playing professional sports. They're being paid to play the sport that they love. They're in America, so they're just so appreciative. You know, and then you get your American players. I mean, I saw a lot of Red Bulls players up and out. They're in, you know, they're with the transfer fee. They're basically bought. I hate all of the terms, but, you know, they're basically, oh, you know, we'll buy him for $4 million. So the team gets this money in order to transfer the player to the European team, whether it was in Spain or the Premiership in England. So Josie Altidore got to cover him. Well, he's back obviously in MLS now, but I was there when he was transferred to, I guess it was Villarreal, I forget. And he, you know, 17 years old. And Tim Ream, the great defender for the U.S. national team when he went over to Europe. So it's been really neat covering a lot of those players. Oh my gosh, Tyler Adams, the last couple of years, young teenager from Wappinger Falls, New York, and he's now over in Europe. He's playing for Red Bull in Leipzig in the Bundesliga. And there's a lot of players now from MLS, going to the major teams in Europe. So it was neat to see kind of the in and the out, who's coming from Europe, who's going to Europe. So I really love the atmosphere. And I always felt like from covering Olympics, it had like that different international vibe, which you don't get you get obviously in baseball, who's from the different, who's Latino and who's from South America. I mean, obviously you have that, but it's South America. It's still this was just so different. You had players from all over the world. Some guys did not speak a lick of English. And it's like, and it's like French and German and, Austrian, Dutch. So that, it's not like I could get away with a little of my Spanish sometimes. I mean, this was really 8 languages in the locker room. And meanwhile, Thierry Henry spoke 7 languages. I mean, the dude could transfer so fluent as could be from French to Spanish to Italian to Chinese and German. It was insane. It was amazing. And you saw that with the in soccer, with any of the European players, many of them, English was taught in school, so they knew or Spanish. So they would come in bilingual with like Spanish in their language. So it was just fascinating. I love that whole cultural aspect of soccer.
I got a question from the fans. I know Sam's going to jump in, and I want to jump in. I want to ask you both this question, but right now I have a fan that just asked me to ask Tina about Bradley Wright Phillips.
Oh, that's my husband's favorite soccer player. He loved BWP.
Shouts to Ryan Foster.
He's actually our assistant coach at DSU.
Oh,
hey!
Thank you very much. BWP. He was the nicest guy, and he's another one that wasn't really getting his chance, wasn't moving up in the divisions in England, and a lot of pressure because of who his father and all that stuff. So playing for Arsenal and everything. So he came over, and I just loved his wife and his family. I did a little story on just his little family life. He just loved being in suburban New Jersey. And this is a kid that grew up in London. His dad played for Arsenal, all that stuff. And, Sean, his brother, was this major player at Chelsea. And he just, him and his wife, and my husband just loved talking to his wife because they were accent and they were so funny. And these kids were such great little athletes. I went to their house and he took me down their basement. And it was, a normal house basement, but the daughter is doing handsprings and backflips. Then you have his son, goals off the side of the house into the mini goal. There was all this stuff and all this energy going on, and it just was so typical. That's BWP. His kids are so athletic and so energetic and so cute. He was just it was such a nice family. He was just a great player. He was super humble. And Thierry Henry would actually always say about him, he could eat. He needed even more of an if he had a little bit of an edge, not a cockiness and not a confidence, because he knew he was better than the opportunities he was getting or performing at certain times. Henry said he should be scoring 60 goals a year. When he was having those seasons where he would have where he won the Golden Boot, where he had his 100th goal or whatever the case may be, and Thierry, he always demanded more from him, and you saw that when they played together. They really did. And Thierry, that's what's so cool about him. This guy could have scored every goal. I mean, he could just score from anywhere on the field. I saw him score a golazo from a corner kick. He would set Bradley up a lot. He really would. So that was neat. Oh, I loved covering Bradley Wright Phillips. He was the best.
Yeah, Sam, I don't know if you have a question, but I want to ask you both a question after that. So
I do. So yes. Just listening to you speak, Tina, you're glowing when you talk about it. And that's the beauty of sports. For me, as a former practice player to assistant coach and having different things, you've seen a lot of things come full circle. So what are some special moments or one specific? Because you've seen Steve Nash go from player, retiree to now coach. You've seen players come back, leave a city and come all the way back. You've seen Carmelo leave the league and come back and as a superstar. So
Amari coaching.
Yes, exactly.
That's what kills me right now, because you've got Amari, Steve Nash, and Mike D'Antoni coaching the same team, and I can't go. I can't go.
Phoenix Suns 2.0. Phoenix Suns 2.0.
I know. Yeah.
They're trailing right now by 5. Okay, so that's a try. Like, and like Jokic is at, in Brooklyn tonight. Like, I want to see this guy. Yeah. It's just not the same. But so that's killing me. What's also killing me too, Mike Woodson's back at the Knicks. Mm-hmm. Uncle Woody. That's what I used to call him. Uncle Woody. And I'll tell you what, first person that called me when, MSG didn't re-sign me in 2015, Mike Woodson.
Wow.
Nicest guy. I mean, and he was also, but my phone was buzzing. So 1 year later at the draft, so there was the 2016 draft. I was working for NBA TV and I was in Philadelphia when they drafted Simmons. Mm-hmm. And so I was in Philly. I wasn't in New York where obviously the players were. So I was with the coaches and all that stuff. And my phone's buzzing and there's Woody watching me on TV calling me. I mean, just the nicest guy. I've done, when I was on NBA radio, when I was filling in there a lot, always come on when I would call him. So he's back in New York, mm-hmm. back on the bench with the Knicks. And like, I can't like go and sit on the bench and talk to him about defense. Like that's driving me crazy. So those are like just special moments, like little things like that. Like I guess, just the full circle, like how sports, it just keeps going around, you know what I mean? And I cover like all different sports, but you see it all across. Like, I'll tell you what was a great moment. Everything's blending. So it was like right before the pandemic when they announced the 2020 Baseball Hall of Fame class, and it's Derek Jeter. And Jeter is like almost to the day 6 months older than me.
Wow.
So to follow his career, and I remember the first Yankees game I went to in person. I went to a Yankees game a couple times when I went to University of Maryland at Orioles. But the first game I ever went to at Yankee Stadium, I was out of college and I was working at a newspaper in New Jersey. And my boss just threw the tickets on my desk and he's like, "Take your father." I'm like, okay. And I took my dad to the Yankees game, and that was Jeter's rookie year. I mean, I was just out of college. It was 96. So it was so cool, like seeing him take the field. I'm like, "Oh, Dad!" Like I remember saying, "Like, Dad, this is the new, or he was saying to me, this is the new rookie." I'm like, "No kidding." I was like, "It's Derek Jeter, blah blah blah." The farm system, they called him up, and and it was rookie of the year. So I remember seeing his career, and I didn't get to cover it till I was, a few years later. Obviously, I'm trying to think the first Yankees game, what year I covered. I was at CBS Sports. It's like 2004ish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was about 8 years later. Yeah, before I had to break through all the different levels as an on-air person. Mm-hmm. So I guess it was like 2004, the first time I was really, doing clubhouse stuff, covering the Yankees. And so just to be able to, watch his whole career. And I was at the last game at Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. I was not at his last game, but I was at his last game that last week, that Sunday that it was, I guess his last game was the following Friday at Yankee Stadium. But I watched that at a bar at Penn State because I was at Penn State doing Penn State Northwestern game. I had a sideline reporting the next day for Big Ten Network. And I remember sitting at the bar watching Jeter's last game. And to see him at that press conference as a Hall of Famer, yes, it was really neat, and just the way he answered my question, because it was like saying hi to everybody. And he just was so relaxed. It was not the same Derek Jeter we saw playing. And that was the answer to my question. Just as he looks back, he said, his parents, it was about advice with his parents. I talked to him about sharing the moment with his parents. And he had said, my dad always told me, "You're not enjoying this. You're not enjoying this." He goes, and now that I can't achieve anything else as a player. I'm a Hall of Famer now. And he's like, so it's not a regret, but I recognize I didn't enjoy it as much. I always was like, even if we won the World Series, 20 minutes later, I was like, okay, we have to win the World Series next year. And to see him verbalize that and communicate that, and to see somebody, he won all those World Series and MVP and all that, but to see the Hall of Fame, that's it. There's nothing for you to accomplish as a player anymore. Right. And to see him take that in, it was kind of neat to see that in person. Anyway, he was super nice. We said hi a little bit at the end afterwards. So that was pretty cool. And that's what's so great about sports. It's not always about the game moment either. Little things like that, just seeing a coach come back to town, or seeing a player become a coach, or a player like that. It wasn't a game. You're not celebrating, but it was now he's recognizing that, I played a Hall of Fame career. It's neat to see somebody in person kind of experience that. So I really appreciate those moments.
Before I ask you the magic question, I have another fan chimed in. Me and Samara know this guy really well, Mike Patrick. He said, Mike Patrick, aka DJ Unique, is our DJ for the tournament. So he said, please ask Tina, what did she feel about Doug Peterson did with tanking the last game and keeping the Giants at the playoffs?
So here's the thing, because I covered the Giants every week, every game. Well, I wasn't physically at the games, but I was at practice once a week, did interviews. The Giants could have won 4 more. There were 4 games they could have won. They could have beat the Buccaneers as well. I mean, there were some games they blew. That Eagles game on Thursday night. So it was fun and it was cool, and it would have been awesome if the Giants were able to back into the playoffs like they did. You know, if the Eagles won that game, and they were on their way to winning that game. I mean, look, do we know there's 4 sides to every story. Doug Peterson lost his job. I mean, and I agree with like a lot of the coaches. So my thing is they didn't know the Giants anything. And I don't think, and I got a kick out of the players, and they weren't whining, the Giants players, but it was funny to watch the Eagles tank. It looked like they were doing it to the Giants. It really did. And I really don't think because then the next day when you talk to the players, like especially Jabril Peppers and Evan Ingram, I mean, they were really upfront. Like, look, we get it. We had 16 chances to win. And it was, you know, we were in that situation. You can't put your fate in anybody else's hand. But it was fun kind of watching them react. You know, It was like, why is Jalen hurt? Like everybody's asking that question, but to see like Saquon Barkley ask that, and who didn't, you know, we played 2 games this year. Like, what's going on here? Could someone explain? Like, it was funny to watch football players, real NFL players, kind of go through what we're going through at the same time. So that kind of added to the drama. But yeah, I mean, you hear so many players say how he disrespected the game. And that's a thing I learned big time, especially with the Knicks and their draft position during the years that I covered them. I mean, there were a lot of times where it's like, oh, tank and lose this. And there were a couple games they won down the stretch, Derek Fisher's first year. And fans were so mad. And like, you know, these players were just trying to win a game, and who's trying to play well to get their next contract. And like Fisher just wanted to win a game. I mean, this dude won, you know, all 5 NBA championships with the greatest player in the world. He's like, I just wanted to win a game, you know? So it's that's why the draft is set up that way. You reward the worst team. But if you have the ability to win, you don't deserve the top draft pick. So if he tanked for a better draft pick, is it going to make a difference? Was he trying to hurt the Giants? I don't think it was. I think it was draft related. But now he's not coaching that team.
So it's not
to the next coach. I disagree with everything that he did. I hope the Jets don't hire him. Actually, I really hope they don't.
I heard that earlier on a few of the network stations. And I hope that isn't the case either. I'm like Sam. I don't really follow a team.
Yeah.
I want my city and state to kind of represent. So like the Buffalo Bills, who went there 4 years in a row and failed. Like I want to see them win. Like in my lifetime, I want to see the Knicks win in my lifetime. You know. And I want the Nets to win in my lifetime when Jay Kidd and Kenyon Martin and Keith Van Horn was together.
I went to a couple of those finals games. Yeah.
The old arena, the Continental Airlines Arena.
Airlines Arena. Oh, I missed that place.
I want to ask you both ladies this, because I know that we're either in or approaching Women Empowerment Month, and I know that a lot of news has been coming out about mental health, about Becky Hammon coaching her first game. The WNBA making a major statement with the Georgia election, and the NBA's message with Black Lives Matter, with the women's empowerment in the WNBA and what they were able to portray. You being prominent women, both of you in your respective fields, how is this long overdue? Do you feel gratified, or you feel like we're still unsurfacing the reality that women should have a rights place in our sport?
Samara, you could go. You're, head coach and coach of a women's team.
You're in the spot, Sam.
And you know what? I love that. I love that.
Good.
So listen, as an assistant coach, 13 seasons. This is my 13th season in college basketball. I will say there's still more to unpack, but it's like it is about time. And I love that we're at an era where it's all-time intelligence for women, it's all-time ambition for women, and it's all-time opportunity. Mm-hmm. So like all 3 things met at the same time. So it was like this was the year, or this was the season. We'll say it like that. This was the season for it to happen. And I said recently on It's in the Game with Randy and Denny that listen, the next time someone's fired in the NBA, call Becky. You should get an interview. She's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt she can handle it. And then in other industries as well, like we have what it takes. So like instead of having to just partner or us being silent partners in certain things, hey, listen, let us take the lead. We have what it takes. We can do it.
Amen to that. Tina?
And you're seeing so many more, and because of Becky's move, and she's like, she
and
was
even
prepared.
Tina, before I don't want to stop you, but also what I realized, I know you have, and Sam, you have. I've noticed that now the NBA has female officials, and I'm
more than ever. Yeah, well, it's not
more than ever.
More.
And I'm like, this is amazing. This is like, like I seen LeBron bark at a girl. Like,
yeah,
I'm a referee. I am so proud to see female referees because I rep with them in my own field. To see them in that highest platform with those caliber athletes, it is amazing. So like, I just want to get your take on it because I'm so happy to see this stuff unfold.
Same thing in the NFL, and you're seeing the female coaches on NFL sidelines more, because of Becky. Now there's more NBA assistant coaches, and then they're going to, oh my God, the head coach of Duke women's basketball now.
Karen Lawson.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a major position. She's on the med sidelines for a little bit, and then, she goes to a major position, obviously, at a huge program for women's ball. So, I mean, I love the forefront. I love the coverage. It's about time. And I was talking to the general manager of the Connecticut Whale, which is the Connecticut NWHL team, the hockey team. It's true though. Like when the WNBA is on, we're covering it. The Liberty are playing, but it's like then the off season, it just doesn't get that same kind of buzz and coverage. Like, my gosh, like we're covering, all kinds of off season stuff for like other, baseball, like all these, I'm leading with baseball tomorrow, because of a signing, but that doesn't quite happen, with women's sports, but it'll, everything's going to have its due time. Obviously the way that we utilize news now digitally, a team. So say like the women's hockey isn't getting on a television network. Well, we have this availability to stream. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people are watching Thursday Night Football on Amazon. They're not watching it on their TV set, like wherever they are or whatever the case may be. So it's going across the board. I loved how with women's soccer, how they were able to get that because of the bubble, because of the pandemic. They were on CBS Sports and they got good ratings. People want sports. So you give them sports. It was, women's soccer. And people stayed and watched it. So these were all good signs. It's all good progression. What's it? How many days? I don't know. The 12th. So 8 days. And we're going to see our first, female in the White House, Madam Vice President, which is going to be, so it's steps. It's all baby steps. I mean, we thought we were going to have a female president 4 years ago. Some things don't happen right away, but these are all baby steps. There's a lot of other things going on with women in sports too, in front offices. Swin Cash is a vice president with the Pelicans, not a WNBA team, but the NBA team. So we're seeing more of that as well, which is impressive. You're seeing more vocal female owners. I mean, Jeannie Buss, obviously, her family legacy, but she has taken on a business role. I mean, she didn't just inherit. She took over the Lakers, and she made some really hard choices and hires. Rob Pelinka, letting Magic Johnson go, the whole 9 yards, and it has worked. Clearly, they're the reigning champions. So it's just not just the ownership. I mean, she has taken that business role. So what an inspiring person she is, and another one that's just laying down the path and being an example. I'm trying to think of other great examples, but yeah, I mean, even in broadcasting, we do have women calling games now, female analysts on Mail Sports. And it's not just the sidelines. I mean, I'm the best sideline reporter because I'm a journalist. So I want to be like, people are like, oh, sidelines, aren't you beyond? I'm like, no, I want to be in, like, I have stories. So I know, XYZ about this player. I might see a coach player interaction. Like, it's about storytelling. So I love that. I don't see that as the third wheel anymore. And there are some games where I'm like, oh my God, you're coming to me again, because you're constantly telling a story or seeing something or undercovering things. So I also think that females in sports roles are being treated different too. It's like, third member of our broadcast team, et cetera. So it's not just the token girl on the sidelines anymore. I mean, this is a big journalistic role. And there were many women like Tracy Wolfson and Bonnie Bernstein and people that had to keep fighting and creating that role to be that. So it wasn't just the token extra person on the sideline. And you see so many great young female reporters out there now. But I feel like Maria Taylor's been like around for a long time now, even though I know she's young. But, you know, she's just like a constant and always reporting, always on air. So there's so many great examples in broadcasting. Hannah Storm and Andrea Kramer, for 2 straight years, they've been calling those Thursday night games on Amazon.
Yes.
It's female hosts. I mean, you turn on Sports Center and you see 2 female hosts. Nobody bats an eye anymore, where that used to be like a big deal. Yeah. Same thing with my show. We have a female. It's me and a female reporter at Channel 5, Jennifer Williams. So, you know, every Sunday night, it's me and my interviews and Jen's lead report, you know, whatever the big lead sports story is, you know, whether it's, you know, Adam Gase getting fired or whatever the case may be. So, and really, I like how initially people were like, oh, it's the first all-female sports team. But then that was it, because we just did our job. And that's what you also like. I know Sarah Kustok always said that. She's like, I understand my role and taking this job and what it means for women being the first full-time analyst on an NBA team. She said, but, you know, I'm doing my job and I want people to not notice it now. Now, you know, when the next person gets hired, you know, it should just be hiring. Like, just, it's not like, oh, there's a woman that was hired. No, it was Jen Smith or, you know, or Danielle Wilson. Like, that's like it's just going to happen. So that's when we know. I think maybe that'll be when we realize, okay, we're here now. Like, when it's not a big deal. And it's feeling like that at times. And I think in politics, it's feeling like that when you don't bat an eye at female governors. I mean, I remember when it was hard to see a female congressman or governor. Sure. Did I just age myself? I really did. So anyway, yeah. So I think, but this as bad as 2020 was. I think it was a really good step in the direction where we're trying to progress as women. I think it was.
I agree. I think that before we take you out of the commissioner corner and putting you inside the rapid fire, I have a surprise for you. So I agree with you. I think that me seeing Sabrina hold down New York, I see Becky Hammond coaching, I see Teaspoon doing things. People I looked up to when I was younger, like, are really making major headways, and I really wanted to glorify that, because women are the best thing on the world besides other things, right? But you guys do a great job. Women should be in sports. They are intelligent. They're awesome. They just have a savviness to it. So I think that, you know, me and Sam talk about all the time, like, when are we going to see this crack? When are we going to see the even line of division be together, right? And be normal and not feel like, hey, Joe Cruz can do a podcast, Sam can't do it. No, Sam could do this.
Or like of the women's soccer team, you know, when they're still struggling with their lawsuit for equal pay. Right. So when that's not an issue anymore, you know, it's we've seen it in tennis, but it's, you know, it is different situations and sponsorships. But okay, so then more sponsors, women's soccer, you know, more eyes on TV. That's we've got to kind of make the shift. But I think as the generations shift, so like this young generation watching the U.S. women's soccer team win twice, and, you know, things like that, and seeing them like in the court, and like little girls at the parade in 2019 with signs like equal pay, like little girls. We know that they need to be paid the same as boys. That's you'll see that shift in 15 years when that, you know, 5-10-year-old girl is 25, 30. Then it'll be.
All of us will be old by then, so let's hope for a fast and speedy way.
Back and be like, good job, kids.
Good job. So this is the portion of the show. Sam is new to this, so me and my boy Brian Gardenhire, we take you out the corner, and we put you in the rapid fire. So we're gonna ask you questions, random questions, get to know you and the fans. So first question I have for you, and then we'll ping pong it with me and Sam. Your favorite NBA or WNBA city to visit pre-COVID?
That is such a tough one. I love Toronto.
I never been there. This is the second time I heard this.
Clean. It's like a clean New York. Really pretty. It's different, and it's a different topography. Okay, Toronto.
Good.
All right. You're a runner and a heel connoisseur. So what's your favorite sneaker and or heel?
Well, I don't buy them anymore. The economy has taken a hit, and my job has changed a bit. So but I did love my Louboutins.
Ooh.
But I
heard the leopard earlier, so I'm like, damn, who beats a leopard?
I got oh my God, they're coming off me, but I got my Nikes on. And then these are my work at home shoes because they're the ones that don't need the sock, and that's what I learned the first time for working at home. You're supposed to wear shoes. You're not supposed to be barefoot. But I had these other Nikes on yesterday for like high intensity workouts. I did a shoot and I was like walking through the Oculus and somebody stopped me, like we're all in our masks and like distance. He's like, what is that shoe? And I was like, oh, it's the high intensity, it's the hit shoe for Nike. And then there's your Jordans, you know what I mean? Like,
okay. Favorite player all time to watch or you followed? WNBA, any sport.
Well, so you mentioned it's fun. I'll do two here. I mean, It was so cool. Like I just knew Cappy's name when she was in college. She just had this aura about her. I know you're friends with her. She was like one of the first WNBA players I got to like really know after interviewing. So I loved, watching Cappy when she played. And it was mellow. I mean, and you know what I loved about him too? It was just like the beauty of his jump shot. Because my background, by the way, is dancing, ballet before I got into sports. So there was just the technicality and the fluidity of that shot, which was so cool. So,
okay, yes, Sam.
What is the next New York's pro franchise to win a championship?
Ooh. I'm gonna go with the Mets.
All right, she's sticking with it.
I'm gonna go with it. I'm on the bandwagon today. Hey, they've got the most money right now. Let's be honest.
Okay, we'll go with the Mets. Best hip hop, R&B, or whatever genre you like album of all time for you.
All time? Ooh, I'm one of those. Not fair weather music. Like I will listen to all kinds of music. I will go like on whether it's Amazon or Sirius. I will go from like hip hop or like a smooth jazz or like classical to like spa music. Then I'll go to like ridiculous corny 90s pop. You know what when I want a good playlist, I've gotten into and I started writing down Alex Toussaint's playlists on Peloton. Who did he? I can't even because I'm not good. You know what I mean? Because I was never like a big avid like go see a hip hop concert or anything like that. But, like his playlists are sick. So I'm like, I gotta start writing this down. So like I bookmark the workout.
That's smart.
Yeah. I don't know, so I'll just like listen to the workout. But there are ways you could download it now, but I haven't figured that out yet.
What's your favorite sports documentary or movie of all time?
Wasn't The Last Dance good?
Well, it was good. And I'm not even big on Michael Jordan. I'm a LeBron person.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was good for the history. I miss 90s NBA. That's what
what I loved about and the music in that got me crazy. Like all the time. My husband was like, crank it up. What was the question?
Documentary or movie? What's your favorite?
I love Rudy.
That was cool. Rudy's cool.
But wait, you know what? Love it.
Tina, that's a safe answer, Tina.
Wait. Do you want to know what I was like supposed to be working the other day? I don't know what channel it was on. Oh, my husband got a Fire Stick. So I think it came up on the Amazon or whatever. Yeah. Loving basketball. I was like, watch this. Because because I hadn't seen it in a while. I love that. That's a good one too. I just stop and watch it. Like I just saw that the other day. That's so funny. Yeah. I mean, I love sports movies. You know what I mean? Like I'll stop and watch them no matter what they.
Okay, I have one more for you. You got to start, bench, or cut somebody.
Ooh.
Okay.
Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant.
God, you can't do that.
Okay, I'll take out Kobe because he's on his own Okay, so we just go. I don't want to make it easy for you, Tina. Let's go. LeBron, Michael. Let's go with
or bench cut. So I have to bench somebody anyway.
Yeah. So Shaq,
Jordan, I'm child of the 90s.
You starting him?
Yeah.
Okay. Who are you benching?
Well, who was the third person that we eliminated? Kobe.
I told you LeBron and Kobe, but you said that's not fair. So
okay. So just bench LeBron, I guess. Well, but Kobe doesn't count. I would never cut or bench him.
Okay. So Dwayne Wade.
Cut. Well, yeah, so at least LeBron's on the team.
Right.
All right, cool. So
LeBron
this-
coming off the bench. Come on, that's good.
that's fair. That's fair. Well, that's my favorite play. He's never on the bench ever.
But like, well, I'm older than you. Like you, I grew up Jordan. Like I was a Knicks.
I'm
fan.
not so far from you. I sing your birthday. I'm not. So
But it was like, oh, you know, it was like, oh crap, here comes Jordan. Knicks are gonna lose, but I just want to watch him play.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's go this modern era. So we go. Damn, who was dominant? So we go maybe Tim Duncan, LeBron, and Kobe, and leave Jordan off. Like Jordan's like on a different plateau.
See that? I mean, you're leaving Kobe in it. I mean, I would still.
No, Kobe's out. Kobe's out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why didn't you bring up Kobe?
LeBron, Duncan, and who else was dominant in that era of 2000? Dirk Nowitzki.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard. I mean, that. Well, it depends. See, do I need scoring or do I need rebounding? I mean, start LeBron. Bench Tim Duncan, and then cut Nowitzki. I can't believe like you're making me do this.
Okay, so you have successfully come out the corner. You're done at the rapid fire. Congratulations, you're done. I'm gonna let you go.
I'm like,
with that. I just want to tell you, it is a wonderful, wonderful evening to spend with you, Tina. I miss you like no other. I haven't seen you in so long.
I know, Joe.
And hearing your voice and spending time with you today with Sam has been a true blessing. And I wish you and your family all the best and well wishes and best health. And anything you need from me and Sam and Randy, we're one call away. And I do miss you on the sideline. I do like Rebecca Harlow, but I miss you.
Thank you. I had Rebecca on my show a couple weeks ago. Again, it was like a month ago now. But Joe, thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you.
Yes.
Well, it's good to see you again. We had met years back.
It is, yes.
At the New York City Basketball Hall of Fame dinner, of course. Where else would we meet? Yeah.
Before you go, I have some things that I'll tell you offline that I want to do with you with my kids from the tournament in terms of the platform we're using to kind of educate our kids on financial literacy and young entrepreneurship.
Great.
I think it'd be wonderful for that. So I'll keep you posted for that. So everybody listening, if you want to follow Tina Cervasio, please follow on Twitter and Instagram on Tina Cervasio. Please follow Sam, Coach Sam at Coach Sam _DSU. And of course, I'm Joe Cruz, Hoops in the Sun. Tina, we love you. We appreciate you. Want to give you flowers before anything happens, God forbid, and I'm here for you. And tell your husband I said hello. And you always have our support.
Thank you. Thanks so much,
right.
Joe. Bye, Sarah.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy New Year. All right, y'all. This is Tina Cervasio. We love you, Tina. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless, Joe. All the best to you.